Peace, peace, peace. This is Rakeem. Today on Wise the Dome, I have Maliki Fard, aka Khalil Allah. He's a follower of the teachers of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He's a wise guy. He's very, very intelligent man. He drops great jewels, man. So I'm glad to have him on. Honored to have him on. Appreciate you for coming on, G.
All praises due to Allah. What's up, God? Peace
I'm,
to Allah in person.
peace to the God. So I wanted
Indeed.
to ask you. So I normally start off with because I build with people of all different walks of life and schools of thought and ideologies, and I'm always interested to know like what got you on the path that as far as knowledge itself and self-realization, like what got you started in it.
Okay, I came into knowledge of self at 12 years old.
Mm,
So we're talking about 35 years ago.
mm,
I got it because my father used to be in the nation in the first Black Panther,
wow.
among other things. So my father was real heavy in making sure that we knew who we were as Black men.
Mm,
So at that time, they had what you call a component set,
okay.
right? And you had the eight, this is old, the 8-track
Okay.
disc.
Right.
You had the cassette tape that you had to play, right?
Right.
So during that time, you used to sit there for the quiet storm, had to press record and play in order to get it.
Right.
But my father brought home Power at Last Forever by Big Brother Minister Farrakhan.
Hmm.
And it changed me.
Mm,
And that week, he brought me Message to the Black Man in America.
mm,
When I read the book, nothing in it was I in dispute of,
mm,
as far as the Black man being God and the white man being the devil.
mm,
I have no argument with those type of things, right?
mm.
So, as you know, I am of many different levels of thought and studying.
Right.
Ceremonial magic, Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn,
Mm,
Rosicrucianism,
mm,
Freemasonry, Sufism. I'm into all of it,
mm,
right? And that too was pretty much pushed upon me looking at my father.
mm,
You know what I mean? Because my father was a Mason when I was younger.
mm,
He still is now. So one of the things that wanted to move in my direction of understanding, I remember I had read a Dr. Maliki York book, and they was talking about the Masons conceal the light because they cover the right with their left and all of that. So one day I asked my father, I had to be about 15 years old, and I sat on the floor and I asked him, I said, why do y'all always cover your right hand with your left hand?
mm,
And ain't that wicked? My father said something very simple.
mm,
He said, you wouldn't understand light without darkness.
mm.
And you wouldn't know that that's your right hand unless you had a left hand.
Wow. Right.
He said, neither is good and neither is evil,
Mm,
right?
mm, right.
So it's depending on how we use the tools
Yeah.
that we have
Mhm.
that designates what's good, what's evil.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Energy of itself is neither good nor is it evil. But if we use it
Mm,
for a prescribed intent, that is out of anger, selfishness, and things of that nature, then we will consider that wrong or
right.
evil, right?
Right.
So, so I've had it, for a long time, since I was 12, 35 years straight.
Wow. So that's powerful. Like you definitely touched on some things I wanted to build about. So what are some misconceptions you think that people have about masonry, right? Because at one time, especially in the 80s and 90s, a lot of books about conspiracy theory based books would talk about masonry, Illuminati, that kind of thing, right? But when we know the history of certain, especially like on the Prince Hall side, and
Right.
how he, created the African Lodge here in the wilderness of North America. What are some misconceptions you think, people may have about masonry that's not right and exact?
Well, when you study the FBI files, and they was questioning early followers who was in the lost temple of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Detroit police, or I believe it was the feds, who were interviewing these individuals. They talked about how the Savior had taught on the history of Freemasonry.
Wow.
Right? So now, how do you know what the lessons are if you don't know the history of that for which it's discussing? Let me show. The lessons, there's only one lesson, it's the student enrollment, right?
Right, right.
Every single degree after that is just elaboration on the 1 to 10. So if we at number 2 of the 1 to 10, we'll put 28 up under there. You see what I mean?
Right.
So now we're building something else to try to show that it's just 1 degree. So it gives us a keyword search per se. So we have a syllabus, we have a subject, then we have the syllabus and outline of the subject, for which as we enter into the university, this University of Islam or knowledge of self, right? We have introduction into lesson number 2, number 16, and we have another one in lesson number 1, number 9, right? Is there. And I believe lesson number 1, number 5, right? So we have an introduction into Freemasonry right then and there. Like if you take number 9, for instance, we would surmise that when we made the devil study from 35 to 50 years, for you to call stuff a Muslim son, we're the greatest. We ain't believing that that is allegorical, that they had to go through a specific study before they could come do trading amongst us. Right. But historically, it is factual. And I'll show you how.
Sure.
The Knights Templars was created by 4 black men, not white. The head one was Hugh D. Payan. The oldest oil painting of Hugh D. Payan was that of a black man.
Wow.
Hugh D. Payan was like the 25th or 27th cousin of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. He was financially backed by an individual who will be known in the church by the name of Saint Bernard of Siverix.
Wow.
When you read Saint Bernard's works, you can see it's nothing but Sufism when you're going into his mysticism, right? That's Sufi dialect, right? So you have Hugh D. Payan that comes about. You have the Knights Templars that are operating in that particular region. These individuals are becoming initiated into our ancient mysteries through Sufism and through the Arabs or the black Arabs and Sufic orders that are in the magic, the magi, the assassins, and those type of individuals. But they're getting initiated in because that was a form of civilizing them. Right? It's the same thing that happened when you look at Albert Churchward, who were signs and symbols of primordial man. He said when he came amongst the tribe, what's the other name for the brother gods over there? The pygmy, right? The tribe. When amongst them, he said that in order for them to even talk to him, they had to initiate them in their lower degrees. Right? And then he stated that certain symbols that he was drawing in the dirt, they already had them symbols. Right? So what this is telling us now is that Masonry predates the white boy, right? It predates him, but not to get off course. So you have Hugh D. Payan that's in that particular region, right? The Knights Templars are being initiated in which they begin to learn our ancient mysteries. This is when they get introduced to Abu Fehmet, or what would be known as Baphomet, or the goat of Mendes, right? One of the earliest, according to Nineveh Shadrach, who wrote the word magic that works, right? He stated clearly when he was talking to me via message, he said, well, the earliest symbol that I found of Baphomet was actually a scarab beetle holding the world like in his claws, all right? And when we understand what Baphomet means, then we understand that it's alchemy and is actually explaining the entire alchemical formula of human existence, universal existence of soul and spirit, right? All hidden within that, okay? Now, to go a little bit deeper, those who were initiated amongst us, we trusted more. So we traded with them, right? We already know, as the messenger taught, he went into that of the body of Jesus, of which they saw, because how else did they know? They said, we have the meaning of the cross. This is what the nice Templar said. No longer did we believe the man was on the cross, we have the meaning of the cross. We had seen truth, right? So now we have the mysteries of what it means. So therefore you have individuals to say Sufi is spiritual Freemasonry. When you understand.
That's deep, God. And so all right, so I've read, I think it might have been Maliki Fard, and he might have been in Secret Teachings of All Ages or one of his lectures, but he was talking about the Baphomet and how that might have been one of the earliest, well, might have been a hidden symbol of Islam, right? So how did Baphomet get from, possibly being related to Sufism or Islam, or, having a higher meaning to people now looking at it as devil worship?
The church. But to be honest, whatever people do not understand, they automatically demonize it. Which is automatic, right? Because if we really looked at it, we got the Baphomet sitting on a cube, coming out of a sphere. In the middle, its bottom legs is that of a goat. It has the caduceus coming out of, which is the private region throughout the navel. Then it has breasts. It has fingers like this pointing at one light moon, one dark moon, on its own, Salvator Coagula, bat wings, two horns coming up. Then it has a lantern going up with an upright pentagram.
Right. And
so one dealing with the mundane, which is the lower, right? The cube then represents the universe and the earth. It's the conjunction of spirit, soul, and matter, right? Then you have the caduceus, if I'm pronouncing it right, it's coming out of the phallic reason. So now it's turning you to sexual energy, which is the mysteries that is hidden all throughout Africa with phallic and yoni worship, right? So it's hidden in there. And the boy Jennings, he wrote a book on sexual worship of the ancients. And he goes to Rosicrucianism and sexual worship. It wasn't that it was sexual worship. Our brother Pascal Randolph, right? Beverly Randolph, was the head, was called a Grand Master, right? Was a part of the Hermetic Brotherhood of Luxor, FRC, which is the oldest Rosicrucian order in America.
Well, that's all I wanted to ask you, God. The Rosicrucians, there's, when it comes to a lot of, quote unquote secret societies, you always see their names, right? But as far as what they actually teach and what they're about seems to be like way more hidden compared to a lot of other ones. Why is that? And what is it that they teach? Like, what are the Rosicrucians about?
I wouldn't say that it's hidden. I say it's right in plain sight. In everything, you must have levels of meditation, the usage of the vowel sounds, visualization, in order for you to reach certain aspects. That's how you bring things from the unseen to the seen. In the Golden Dawn, what do they say? By words and images, all powers are awakened and reawakened. Because what is unseen is before us. We walk through it all day. We consider it to be space that we're walking through. We ignore that it's trillions of little life forms that exist in the form of matter that separate us from one wall to walk a distance to another wall, right? But that is considered unseen. But if we can visualize a thing, then what we do, we take matter, we give form to the unseen. We give purpose to the unseen in accordance to our will.
Mm.
You see what I mean?
Indeed.
As God, we bring it according to our will, by our belief in that, by our emotion towards that, we give life to it. We create archetypes inside of the universe. By our actions, we begin to work. That's how come one of the things that they take is what? You have to see it, emotionally be there already. Not that you got to get there, but already in a form of gratitude, because you have gratitude for what you have already received. Right. So let me show you. And I don't want to get off topic.
No, you're good. You're good. I like that, man. That's powerful, God.
Yes, sir. I serve time upstate. The Holy Quran teaches us that Allah can relieve us in our sleep. So it's talking about having a wet dream. Right?
Wow.
Right. Anybody that been away from that sexual act and you have experienced a wet dream, when you having it, if you wake up slightly, you will see yourself humping. In your mind, you are in full intercourse. Fully. Right. Your body then reacts to what the mind has perceived to be true.
Wow. Right.
Okay. Now look at how deep this gets. So that now to show you how deep this gets, eye only takes in light. It doesn't take in a form. The eye and the brain plays a trick that creates a form. No atom touches. Not one. Particles break down into waves and back to particles.
Right. Especially on the quantum level.
Of course. So that means they're not even solid. So we are creating this dynamic. It's like, for instance, if I tell you close your eyes, right? And I say to you, visualize me in front of you and visualize that I said salam, right? When you do that, did you ever stop and ask yourself a question? How did you see me and you wasn't using your eyes? Right. How did you hear me and you didn't use your ears? Think of that. And when you are looking at me, you're looking at me as if, in your mind's eye, as if you're looking on a movie screen and you're observing me on the screen of your mind. So there's an aspect of you that is you. Right. But you're not necessarily one with that for which is you. Right? Just build with me just a little bit, God.
I got you.
All right. Yes, sir. Which is you. Now look. The brain in the external form does not see a difference. So if it happens within the mind, then it has happened. Right. Therefore, fear goes down into the genetic memory. Right. And it presents all for which shall be. To be contained within you, passed down to a child. Right. Your thoughts, your images, your knowledge, your truth. Therefore, you're being incarnated back again through the child, thus being reborn as the living God. Right. This, and I mean, we just build on. I don't want to go too far on it. But all that I'm saying is that the external do not know the difference from the internal. So if the reality has occurred within inside of self, then the universe or the external aspect can do nothing but match the vibration and will of the power that has seen it to be. Right. That is God in person. Right. So what the messenger told us in the table talks, he gave us that science. He said, if you have a house sitting in your mind and you bring it into reality, he said, that's the God. Indeed. Then he went on and he went a little bit further just to build on what I said. He said, we cannot go beyond the limitations of the first God because it came down through us and he is now in all our persons. What did I just build on? I said that all that we think, all that we feel, all that we experience is embedded within our genetic memory. and then it is shot forth.
Right.
Right.
You know, they even have.
Then it is shot forth.
The science even shows and proves that at this point that genetic memory is.
Of course. Of course, because cerebral fluid is in your semen.
Wow.
Now, ain't that something, right?
Right.
But we don't catch and pay attention to how this is actually released from us and the will that is being implemented into the sperm cell, right? By God, right? So, and not to get off topic, because I don't want to go no further. I mean, go a little bit too far left, but to get back on the Rosicrucians. So what they teach is the manifestation of God. Because at their higher levels, they teach that they are God. Right. Period. Right. But us being God, we must also understand that there are aspects of ourselves that we are not in tune and not in touch with. We should be able to read minds. We should be able to call forth from out of matter everything that we desire and will. We should be able to leave our forms. We should be able to do these things because that's what God do. There's no limitations to God, but what God placed upon himself. So that's what we're dealing with, right? Right. And like one of my sayings is, God has already become man. Man must now become God. Right. It's two different things, you know?
So you had and that kind of leads into the next question, because you had a bill the other day about, you know, when it comes to W.D. Fard, Master Fard Muhammad, and him being Allah and the person, you said a lot of, you know, people and followers of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad may not truly understand what that means, right? If you can, you know, break down from your seat, like what that means, Allah and the person. Well, Master Fard is Allah and the person, like from your understanding.
Of course, of course, I will do that from a spiritual, and I will also do it from a very literal meaning.
Okay.
Your father is in your person.
Yeah.
Your child is you are in the person of your child too.
Right.
And so on and so on. There is only one Allah. You may think that you're an individual, but you have billions of lives that create you, that manifest as you, that show that you might be represented as an individual, but you are a multiplistic being. Right. And just show, right?
That's powerful, God. That's powerful. Go ahead.
That's just build on God level, right? Let's take what the messenger said again. He said, we cannot go beyond the limitations of the first God because he came down through us and he is now in all our persons. Let's just take that point of view, all right? If it's genetic memory, that what we experience, our knowledge, what we are emotional about, is trapped within inside of our genetics, then we pass that memory, we pass that feeling, we pass that force, that intelligence within the sperm cell to create a child. Right? So in reality, the child is you being incarnate in their being. You did the same for your mother and your father. All of that knowledge, all of the trauma, everything came down from them, manifested as you. So did it go from their mother, their father, came down through them and their mother and father down to you, and so on and so on. So what you are seeing is one being incarnate in a multitude of things. But it's just one. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I definitely understand.
Right. So when I say Allah, who appeared in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, Allah is not a mystery God. That's one. The divine mind or nous incarnates as man. In other words, we are separate from our own divine nature, right?
Right.
So
Well, before you go into that, why are we separate from our own divine nature, or how?
Because we fell. We fell because we bit the forbidden tree of good and evil, per se, right? We became, emotion is a tool. The ancient Egyptians said emotions are good servants, but they're poor masters.
Right.
But emotions can either enslave us or we can use them to set us free. Sex can enslave us or we can use it to set us free.
Right.
So when we are trapped within the lower desire, we become farther and farther from the divine nature of being and more into the carnal self, which would eventually fade away.
Right.
But the divinity of what we are is eternal. Right? So the messenger said there's no spirits floating around in space unless that of the righteous minds. Which is very interesting language, right?
Well, yeah, so what is that righteous mind?
Thought never dies, neither do the mind. We are walking through a sea of electric magnetism.
Yep.
Aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Every thought is physical. Everything is physical. There is nothing that's not physical. It's just subtler planes of physiology. But nonetheless, it's physical.
Right.
So the younger or the older philosophers and students of science, well, the atoms are not physical. But if you can see it, it's physical.
Right.
If you can take it apart, it's physical. If you can see the particles in it, it's physical. A wave of energy is physical. It depends if you have created the machine in order to study it and see the wave.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Indeed.
So therefore, the divine Tahuti stated, or Djibouti, he said what? He said, study the known to learn the unknown.
Study the known to learn
the unknown.
Wow.
So this is what we're dealing with within that cycle. So when I say Allah in person, Master Fard Muhammad is a manifestation of the original people. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said what? He said he could not come in the spiritual form that he was in, that of the nation's mind. So by our will, we developed a form in order to bring forth into existence our will and inner need to manifest the divine nature of being to guide us back to what we are.
Hold on, God.
A book called The Principles of Islam, The Principles of Sufism, by a woman, I think, Agna Nahid. Inside of the book, she has an entire chapter just on the name Fard. And the name Fard meaning seclusion, withdrawal, isolation is one of the terms. Hidden within that name is also giving us the science of ourselves, right?
Right.
Because when you read it, so we look at the name Fard or Fard as a state of being, a state.
Right.
And to show you that, because she describes that those who have reached the state of Fard are no longer those who are trapped under happenstance or chance. In other words, they are self-propelled.
Right.
They are self-guided. Right. So now, can you tell the difference of the divine voice in you talking to you from what you have learned from your environment?
Right. Because, that's a good question, because sometimes, seeds get planted that might not be of you, but it could be, like the saying of a product of your environment. Like,
absolutely,
your surroundings are everything around you. The external stimuli that you are around is influencing you in one way or another if you are not totally aware of that.
Oh, absolutely. So what we're dealing with is, for instance, you have a voice inside of you that'll tell you not to do something.
Yeah.
Don't say that. Don't go there.
Right.
Every time you don't pay attention to it, something wrong happens.
Right.
So therefore, there's an aspect of you that is omniscient and omnipresent. You're not always in union with that omnipresent or omniscient aspect of yourself,
Right.
but yet it's there, right?
Right.
So therefore, we have to start creating, as they say in psychology, the false self, right? So we have a false self. The false self is what we identify ourselves as, based upon our environment, our traumas, our learning, our teaching. All of that stuff got to become undone.
Right.
In order for us to know what we truly are.
Yeah.
Right?
Indeed.
So I remember Aleister Crowley saying, do thy will shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. So when we say do thy will shall be the whole of the law, you got the devils, they run around and say, well, that meant you could do whatever you want to do. Nah. The question is, do you know your true will? Do you really know your true will? Because that's the question. Do you know your true will? Because when you know your true will, then you can close all the books. Right. You don't need any more guidance, because now you're one with that omniscient aspect of yourself, that conscious mind is your God.
How does one begin to understand what their true will is?
Well, first you have to undo of what is not your true will.
Yeah.
Right? So we go through that through stages of meditation, visualizations, things of that nature. Let me give you an example. I remember when I went on a fast, me and a brother of mine, we had rented a condominium on City Line Avenue. We went on a 3-day fast. The object was to control the mind and bring it under the power of my will and my body. So we did no water, no food, no sleep for 3 days.
Wow.
So for that time period, and when you go into meditation and prayer during that time, boy, you be gone. You get what I'm saying? But after the 3 days we came out, we were sitting in the truck and we was ready to leave. And we saw a person walk behind the car. So we sat there for 15 minutes and I eventually said to him, listen, did that person leave from behind the car? He said, listen, man, I ain't want to say nothing because I ain't want to be the only one out there to say I saw it. He jumped out of the car, it wasn't nobody there. Right? So what that taught me was the level of diet and how it plays a role in our aspects to open up different sensory realities that exist innately within our being. Right. During that same time period, I was going into certain forms of meditations, and I was going deeper and deeper inside of it. And God, I would hear voices just as you and I sitting right here, clearly, that would communicate clearly. So it's just showing that diet, and at that time, I would not allow myself to think wrong. So if a negative thought arose in my brain, I would just exit it out, and I would keep my mind on the righteousness. And I would do this while I control my diet, fasted often, and that's what I would do. So during that time period, I was dealing with the tarot cards, which was from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, right? As time went on, I no longer needed the cards. You see what I mean? And I was able to read without cards. All of these things is because of diet, changing of our thinking, and fasting and not eating so much. And when we do eat right. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, and I'm paraphrasing, and I'm gonna chop it up a little bit, but I'm paraphrasing. He talked about how if you wanted to, pretty much, he said, go off in a room, close the door behind you. When no one can find you, pretty much you wouldn't be bothered. He said, and then hold the image of that brother or sister in your mind, and you can eventually communicate with them. He said, He said, meditate on the mother plane and you can hear her engines. Then he talked about how they are able to tune into us from the east. He said, you can do it too. He said, but you're a little rusty in the spiritual part of your brain.
Mm.
So it wasn't that something was separate from us.
Right.
It's telling you, listen, this is what you can do.
Right, right.
You have been separated from who you are, which is the original man.
Mm.
Who is the original man? The original man is a black man, the maker, the owner, creator of planet Earth. And some say father of civilization, God of the universe. No problem. You have identified who the original man is. But it did not say, I am the original man in that lesson. It's identifying who the original man is, though.
Right, right.
Ain't that something?
Yeah, indeed.
So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, he say, you are not a making model of the original man. He said, you have been experimented on by the enemy for 400 years.
Right, right.
Now look at this. We are taught of the deportation of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
I would say that really happened if we can understand it in detail of what it means.
Okay.
Whether we deal with Sumerian texts, the Olmec even have a study of it about how the moon was one time was a part of the earth, and even scientists learn that now. Now, whether somebody physically deported it, that I do not know. But what I will say, I know it was a part of this earth. Now, within that, we know that there's a spiritual, contextual understanding to that sign.
Can you break that down, God?
Because what occurs at the deportation of the moon also has God hiding from us his person for 66 trillion years, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was the individual that deported the moon? Arrogance, ego, vanity, emotional. And because of these things and other things, his actions caused that.
Right.
Look at the human being. The human being has been separate from his divine self because of the misuse of ego.
Right.
And the powers that exist within ego, desires. Arrogance can free you.
Right, right, right.
If held righteously in his motion.
Right.
But when we are arrogant, when we are egotistical, when we are self-righteous, it is detrimental to us. It causes and feeds the false self.
Right.
So therefore, the deportation of the moon within us has separated us from our own divine nature.
Right, right.
It has been removed, and God has remained hidden, which is your true self, for 66 trillion years within yourself.
You touched on something.
Can only be.
I didn't mean to cut your wisdom, God. You touched on something that was, within a certain thought or bills from brothers and sisters who are in the conscious community. You said misuse of ego, right? Meaning that there is a use for ego. Some people teach,
of course,
ego should be killed, right? Like we should kill the ego. What is, as far as what is the use of ego from how you see it?
The ego allows you to defend yourself.
Right.
The ego give you a sense of pride about yourself. Therefore, you get a haircut,
Right.
you shave your face, you create a job for yourself, you take care of your child, you put on clothing and not walk around butt naked.
Right, right.
Let's just say on them smaller levels.
Yeah.
The ego will help drive you to success.
Right. Right. That's
and in Sufism. Go ahead, God. I'm listening.
No, I'm sorry, God. I didn't. Nah, go ahead, Bill, God. You said in Sufism.
In Sufism, you have what you call the state of fana, or the state of annihilation. The ego itself, per se, is never killed, it's transmuted. It's a different aspect.
Mm.
When the ego become one with the divine, right? Let's take our lesson number 16. In this 16, it is pointed out who the 5% are.
Right.
Right. It ends and it mentions Muslim sons. It mentions Muslim and Muslim sons.
Yep.
Right? Okay. Look. Poor righteous teacher. One of the names of a Sufi is poor. They say that they are poor because the only wealth is Allah. They are poor because they are always in search of being one with Allah, right?
Right.
So they're poor. Righteous is the nature, right?
Right.
In a mental concert to be one with the divine. Let me show you. Islam is the nature of creation, according to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, supported by Surah 30, Ayah 30. Nature, or the Arabic word nature, comes from the word fitra. Fitra is a word which I would explain, which is the natural accordance of a thing. For instance, if you've seen somebody walking in front of you and the older person was ready to fall, your natural condition will be, let me reach down and try to help them.
Right.
You wouldn't have to be taught that. It is a natural instinct in order to try to help the elderly person before they fell.
Right.
Meaning it is a natural instinct for you to do good. It is a natural instinct for you to be righteous. That is Islam.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Indeed.
So that is the nature of creation itself. All right. So now, this thing gets interesting, right?
Yes, it is, God.
Right? This guy got the God in his mind, right? So look, man, and y'all have that in y'all with I God.
Right. The culture is our God.
It is the same exact thing.
Right. I
God.
think that's powerful, God, because as far as transmuting the ego and finding use for it instead of completely doing away with it is even more powerful sentiment to me, because we can do away with the thing, and once we do away with the thing, we're not using it anymore, right? It's not a part of us anymore. But to be able to transmute that thing to bring about positivity, to bring about a higher understanding, that's even better.
Absolutely, and not to get far off, but to step back to that number 16 of the 1 to 40. And to show you why all of that connects and why Muslim son is even mentioned. Inside of the end of the apprentice degree, one of the names of the end of the apprentice degree is the degree of destitution. Let's pull up. I want to make sure that I define destitution as clearly as I possibly can, right? So destitution, let me pull it here. All right. Poverty is so extreme that one lacks the means to provide for oneself. In the end of the apprentice degree, in the ritual, they ask them for metallic substance or metallic emblem. They have none. One of the statements is he's a penniless one. Penniless is not talking about money. Right. Not talking about money. You don't need to be broke to be a poor righteous teacher. That's a misunderstanding. Right. But to be penniless is to be in spiritual poverty, spiritually inept. You see what I mean? To be separate from the divine nature of your being. Right. We spend a lifetime to ascertain such, to see our true faces in the mirror. Inside of Zen, they ask a question: what was your face before you was born? Wow. Just think of the God science in that. You understand what I'm saying? Indeed. So we are in a constant state of development, of self-mastery. Right. So that's why you have the Masonic thing mentioned in there as poor righteous teacher. And that's how come you have Sufism in there as poor righteous teacher. Because within them are spiritual systems that's teaching the deprivation of man from God, without God. He is deprived. We need Allah. We need to be one with the divine nature of being. And I'm not getting off subject, but let me make this clear. Yeah, we are God. Nothing can take away you being God, right? But would God get drunk? Would God bang 50 million women and be controlled by it? Would God keep teaching hatred? Would God snort cocaine? Would God do these things? You see? So therefore, the false self again, I'm God. Yeah, you God, but what type of God are you? You see what I mean?
Indeed.
It's not even an argument. So, because the message define God as anything possessing wisdom, force, and power, or possessor of wisdom and force and power. Right. So, you have to look at the mathematics of what's being taught there. The message said, "I'm Allah, you are Allah. We are all Allah. There is nothing outside of that." Right. And that's what we are. But we must manifest the reality of who we are. And the only way you can manifest the reality of who you are is by reaching the state of Fard, by withdrawing from a certain society mentally, not leaving it in form like a Buddhist in a mountain, but to be able to withdraw yourself from the negativity of society, withdraw yourself from the lower dimensions of self, withdraw yourself from those things into the highest pinnacle of being. So when we are talking about annihilation, self-annihilation, which in Sufism, it means that the individual dies and all that exists is Allah. In other words, psychology, the false self is destroyed and all that exists is the true self. See, as God, we gave birth to both the enslaver and the savior. We gave birth to Yaqub. We didn't give birth to Master Farah Muhammad. Ain't that something?
Indeed.
At the same time, it's giving us mathematical science on who and what we are. Because Yaqub manifests as God. He changes things, but he changes according to the will of the originator that gave birth to him. And without him, there's no need of a Master Farad Muhammad.
So Yaqub, in essence, was doing his duty.
He was doing his duty because he's the ego. Right. Look, let me tell you something. The gravitation process didn't happen 6,600 years ago alone. It happens every time you think a negative thought. Every time you think a negative thought, the gravitation process begins again. Because the messenger said that the brain was made to do what? Think right. That's the original state of it, right? So the minute that we think wrong, it's like, for instance, they say in the hadith, they say, when you look at a woman the first time, oh, that's natural. When you look at her the second, you're like, yo. When you look at her the third, you like, you are out of order, right? So the natural reality is first, we look at her, right? So first, the negative thought arises in our brain. That's the first thing. First, the natural thought, then the negative thought. We look at the negative thought, we start to ponder on it. We start to ponder on the negative thought a little bit more. Now we're looking at, let's just use a woman. We look at her, damn, she's nice, she's pretty. Damn, she's bad as shit. You see her form? Then the next move, man, I want to fuck her. I'm gonna get her suck my jaw tonight. All of that occurred because what we are doing, we're killing the original baby. And we are causing the lighter to mix with the lighter. So what we're doing, we're marrying the grafted thought with another grafted thought, with another grafted thought, therefore killing the original black baby and giving birth to devil. So therefore the gravitation process starts every day. And not even to ignore it, if we look at it as a social dynamic, then we're looking at it today, because you have what? You have the nurses, you have the doctors, you have the ministers, you have the cremators.
Right.
You have the doctors. The doctors symbolize the hospitals and the universities, right?
Right.
Then you have the ministers, who represents the religions.
Right.
And then you have, and those that teach it. And then you have the nurses who have learned from that and continuously begin to push that amongst the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even if, right? And then the cremator is those who violate, that do not go along with things, they are cremated, meaning they are eliminated or I destroy them.
Right. Right.
Today, we destroy you by media and propaganda.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So it gives us a science of how to deal with it. Whether we deal with it or not, it's just up to us. But not to get off the subject, and just to take it back just a little bit more, if just in case, in the response to the Rosicrucians. One of the Rosicrucian orders that exists in Europe wrote in a manifesto, I mean, in a booklet or they bylaws, or it mentions, they state that Rosicrucianism was manifested to introduce to Europe in a form that they would accept and understand the teachings of the Orient and the East. Mm. Right. You see? It's kind of like the Eastern Stars. When the Eastern Cross Stars was created by Robert Morris, it was supposed to become a female Masonic order, right? Right. The original ritual of the Eastern Stars was of Roman gods and Roman goddesses, right? Right. But he realized it wasn't taken because they were too damn religious. So what he did, he went back into the ritual and then he made biblical references all through it. And then the people was able to grab it. Right. Right. Ain't that something? Yeah. And look, and not to go too far, but just to deal with the Hugh DePayne thing again. So Hugh DePayne was friends with a person by the name of William St. Clair. William St. Clair was the king. St. Clair was the king of Scotland. Right. All right. Okay. He was also the first Grand Master of the Mother Lodge, number 0 in Killarney. Right. This thing gets deep. Hugh DePayne wound up marrying. Hugh DePayne wound up marrying one of his family members. I think her name was Mary. Look at how all of that ties. Remember, Hugh DePayne was the 25th or 27th cousin of Prophet Muhammad. Right, right, right. Wow. Isn't that something? Yeah. So it looks like how Templar as well, right? Excuse me? And Knights Templar as well, right? Of course. Yeah. He created that. So all of that is really just, it's our child. Right. We gave birth to it. So we would say that we are the closest paternal parent to Freemasonry. We know the older would be ancient Egypt and stuff of that nature. We know that to be a fact. You know what I mean? But Freemasonry right now, and it's just a Christian religion. Yeah, I mean, not religion, but just say a Christian society. I will call it that. There's a Christian society. Ain't nothing deep going on because they don't. But I want to make this known again. The white bull Masonic Lodge is different than the black bull Masonic Lodge. The black bull Masonic Lodge is more like a social club. Right. And you know, the white bulls have a social club. Believe me, they move for power. Right. Like, connections and things of that nature. They also have inner orders such as the SRICF, which is Societas Rosicruciana. I think a federation. I don't forget the wording to it, but that's actually a Masonic Rosicrucian order. You have to be a 3rd degree Master Mason in order to even get in, and you can't even petition. They have to choose you. Wow. Right. So, but from our brother Pascal Beverly Randolph, which was a black man, all of them was aroused. Aleister Crowley was able to get his higher levels of degrees to the Ordo Templar Orientis and their sexual magic. Degrees were given to Society Rosicruciana in America, which was by the Bull Plummer, which now exists, which Tabitha Cicero is the head of it, also the head of the Golden Dawn simultaneously. And then you had Swinburne Clymer in them. His workings wound up giving rise to the oldest Rosicrucian Society in America, FRC. And that leads us to that study because of a lesson. right?
All right.
But let me show you a little bit deeper. Let's take the shrine, for instance.
Mhm.
All right. John G. Jones was a Prince Hall Mason.
Okay.
John G. Jones was given a charter by an individual by the name of Pasha. When you read the original ritual of the ancient, the Shriners, the Black Shrine, that was John G. Jones, he states clearly inside the booklet, he states clearly, he says, they got their source and their authority from Ali, which was the cousin of Prophet Muhammad.
Right.
Almost every Sufi order ties back to Ali, except for one that ties back to, I believe, the Abu Bakr. When you read Ali's cousin, the cousin of Ali, his workings, you clearly see he was on some mystical level with how he was really getting it in to the spiritual sciences, right? He also states that Pasha said that the shrine was really for Muslims. Wow. But because he was Christian, he had to give it to him in a watered down version.
Wow.
So if it ties back to Ali, then that means that the shrine is originally a Sufi order.
Wow. Wow.
Now look, the white boys, Flowers and Flemings, I get which one mixes me up sometime, but they went amongst the Batashi Sufi order. They sat amongst them. Because of their degrees in Freemasonry, they was allowed to sit amongst them. All right. They wound up seeing the ritual that took place of this Sufi order. And either Flemings or Flowers, when they left, they said they left with the exoteric meaning, which means the external or surface meaning, but they wasn't able to get the esoteric meaning, which was the inner meaning of the ritual. They did say, however, they was able to get the inner meaning or esoteric meaning when they traveled to Egypt. There, they met a brother who was from the West, who was initiated into the orders of the Druids. This white boy really was by the name of Russell, and he was high up in the Theosophical Society that was created by H.B. Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, and all of these individuals. So they wound up getting the inner order, right? So they wound up getting the inner meaning. Now, one of the older names of what would become a shrine would be called the Order of Nobles.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of it.
Ritual, I believe, exists in Syria today. These boys was enforcers of truth and law throughout, but also they was a Sufic mystical order that was for the inner order of those of the Islamic faith or Muslims.
Wow.
Right?
Right.
So it tells you what it really is. Look at Deuce Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Deuce Muhammad Ali was a Sufi, right?
Right.
But his wife was what? His wife was very high up in the Rosicrucian fellowship that was created by Max Hendel, right?
Wow.
Max Hendel was initiated by who he called the elder brother, which was no more than Rudolf Steiner, right?
Wow. Wow.
So it really depends on how far somebody really trying to go in the history of what's really going on with that.
You think Deuce Muhammad Ali was teaching Garvey any of that?
Of course he did. Garvey stated it himself. You know that in the end, Garvey said in the name of Allah. He left Catholicism.
Wow.
He said that Islam will unify Africa.
Wow.
So he left Catholicism completely. You dig what I'm saying? Yeah. So all of that was separated. But I mean, when we looking at Allah in person, it is talking about an individual who had reached the state of being self-guided, self-safe, master of self.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? He don't have to look for an external thing in order to guide him. He is self-conscious with his true will.
Right.
You see what I mean? That's Allah in person. Not even discussing, just he manifests our will in form.
Right. And you you built on how when it comes to our true will, we pass certain things down to our offspring, the good and the bad, the traumas, right? And being in the hells of the wilderness of North America for 400 years and experiencing, what we've experienced here, we have these generational traumas that we pass down. not, and it's not just traumas we pass down. We are original people. We have a great history. We have a great traditions. We pass these things down as well. But as far as when it comes to reaching, that state of being to where you're relieved of your traumas, right? Like how does one get there? Because we always talk about especially in 2021, mental health and all of these things are and pushed in the forefront of when it comes to medical news and things of that nature. But what do we have to do as original people, knowing we have these traumas, where we can eliminate passing these traumas down to our offspring, or at least giving them the tools to be able to handle those?
Well, I would say some of our people need help. It ain't no way, and I think we all need help in some form of fashion, right? I had heard Dr. Ali Muhammad say, anyone that has been born on this side of the Atlantic is suffering from a mental illness.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
There's no way that we're not in some form of fashion, right?
Right.
Because of our upbringing. Forget the devil. Mm-hmm. We already know his hands in it, right?
Right.
Look at our own parentage and what they developed from. Look at our environment. Mm-hmm. Look at society and how we being fed, right?
Right.
All this creates traumas. First, we have to be able to identify the trauma.
Right. Right.
And then begin to work on coming out of the trauma. Inside of Sufism, they have something called muhasaba. It's self-auditing. Sufis use it. The Rosicrucians use it because they are the child of Sufism. Right?
Right.
And which is every single day, at the end of your day, you should write down everything that you feel you said wrong, done wrong, or whatever, and then seek to correct it. Right?
Right.
Now, in a book called The Middle Pillar by Israel Regardie, he was a psychotherapist as well and a high initiate of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and also a member of what will become Argentum Astrum, or the Order of the Silver Star, right? Or the AA.
Right.
In there, he gives us some tutelage. He say, go in a room, take a tape recorder, just you. Make sure ain't nobody in the house, because you're going to say some things you don't want people to. And make sure you lock that damn tape thing up, because there's a lot in there, right?
Right.
And he said, whatever come to your mind, just say it.
Damn.
Don't allow your self-accusing spirit to touch you. Don't judge what you're about to say. Don't let your morals get in the way. Just talk. He said, just talk, whatever come to your mind. And what you begin to see is that your mind over time is filthiness, is all in that mind. The first thoughts coming to your mind.
Right.
And so, but you got to let it keep playing.
Right.
Because what's happening is what is in the subconscious mind is now coming out.
Yeah, yeah.
And it is being revealed to you.
Right.
And you got to let it just keep playing and playing. Now, within the same thing, he has a form of what we call regressive therapy. That's all they use in Dianetics, right?
Right.
Is regressive therapy.
Right.
That's what all that it is regressive therapy. Do you need to go there to get it? No. If people believe they do, then be my guest. I'm not telling people what not to do and not to do, but I don't need it that way.
Right.
The regressive therapy technique is take a trauma that you remember, or you might need some help. And then take that trauma and play it in your mind and go as far back to that trauma that you can. Play it. Feel all of the emotion to the trauma. All of it. Whether it's a fear, whether it's sadness, whether it's pain, whether it's happy, go all the way back. Bring yourself as if you're there, because you are.
Yeah.
If it happened to you at 10, that 10-year-old little boy is still sitting right there in the subconscious mind, right? We live in the past, we act out the past. Every day. It's our past that we barely deal with the present. We're always living in the past and what we hope something should be.
Indeed. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And that's how things always exist. But the past does not exist. The future is fleeing, and the only thing you got is the present. This is where all the power is, right? So look, that brings with the message, say perfect past, future, and present sense, right? So present tense right here controls the future and the past.
Right, exactly.
So look, now look at this. So as you bring up the pain or the fear that is attached to that particular trauma, once you bring yourself to the brink where you crying and the fear is overtaking you, rewind it. Replay it again. Go throughout all the pain, all the fear, and all the stuff. Replay it again. Till eventually you do it and you feel nothing. At that minute, that trauma has been removed.
Wow.
So that's the secret of regressive therapy in order to do it. Now, sometimes when certain traumas occur to it, it's hidden in the subconscious mind where our desires. That's why Jesus say, what, as a man thinketh, so he is. If he thought of adultery, then he has committed it.
Right.
Because that act or that arch tip exists where? In the subconscious mind. It's still there, though. It didn't go anywhere. It's there, right? That thing is deep. So what begins to happen is we go deeper within the subconscious mind, and we begin to release from that the lion in the cage. We begin to remove those rusty locks as the messenger.
17 million rusty locks.
Right. And it start to come on out of that, right? In order for us to be free. Now, sometimes because the trauma was so vicious, then a false identity is created around it, and then a voluntary amnesia begins to exist in order to hide the trauma. Right.
Yeah, that happens a lot with victims people who have been victimized in traumatic experiences. Absolutely.
So what you may need is someone to help you with hypnosis if you don't know how to commit self-hypnosis. Hypnosis works in order to help pull out of you an aspect that's suffering. In order to bring out, that's what they do in Scientology with auditing. It is a passive form of hypnosis, though the people don't know what it is. You know? And that's how you go to release it. But at the same time, and I'm gonna use this terminology because I don't know how to submit to Allah. Right? And let's say we remove the word submit, and let's say you subdue your lower passions and give your whole will over to your true self. Because we taught in the lessons, right? That fine mist, as it get closer to the sun, what happens?
It stills.
All right then. So therefore, if we are getting closer to the sun, which is the true self, which is Allah, then what do again? It begins to purify us, purify the mind, purify the soul, purify the spirit. You see what I mean? And it heals all things. But if you notice, the sun don't judge you. The sun don't judge your right or wrong, your good and your evil, right? So as you approach closer to the sun and you are revealing the reality of who and what you are, going through the false identity of the self, neither can you judge it. Neither can you judge right or wrong. You have to just let it go. Yeah.
That's a to get to that state where you're not looking at things as right or wrong. That has to be a powerful state of being to be in, because we are so indoctrinated from the time, you know, we were born, time we were babies about, you know, this is wrong. This is what society tells us is wrong. What society tells us is right. And in a lot of cases in Yakub's world, what society tells you is right is the opposite of what you need to be doing in the first place.
The devil has created a good world for himself, you
yes,
know?
he has. Yes, he has.
But the divine nature will always lead you to what is right. An individual know what's right and wrong.
Right.
They know. Now, whether if you follow it,
it's
up to you.
Yeah. That's
the Quran say when it's right. When the self-accusing spirit awakens, judgment day begins for you.
You know, that's interesting that you say that, God. I've had that that spirit for a long time. I didn't always act on it, but I have been my hardest critic from since I could remember, you know. And I used to see people where, you know, it would be so intense sometimes it would kind of make me depressed, right? Because I'm like, even if it didn't seem like it was a big deal to anybody else, right? To me, I held myself in such a high standard, right? That I would always that self-accusing spirit will always be there, like, and not necessarily I realized it wasn't necessarily in a judgmental type of fashion. It was there actually, you know, telling me what I need to do and how I need to move forward. It's just I didn't listen to it before, so that feeling was intense.
Absolutely.
And, you know what I mean? Have you ever felt like that?
All day, yes, sir. I go through it.
Yeah.
You know, I may be able to intellectualize many things. I got to gather the full discipline to practice everything.
right.
Man, I come from the middle of the hood, man. It is what it is, you know.
Right.
You know, we manifest. There's certain things I just won't do, and there's certain things that I will do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
From the hood, I know I'll never be a rat.
Right.
You dig what I'm saying?
But that's what I'm saying. We learned a lot.
Be a fact. I never be a rapist.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. We learned a lot. We learned a lot.
Sir. I mean, it's just certain things I know not to
bad, you know.
Absolutely. Well, I would say everything has purpose.
Yeah.
Everything is a teacher and a student.
Right.
It's a teacher and a student. Our question is why? Why do we experience it? Why are we seeing it? Why are we dealing with it? And what is it for us to learn? Yeah, indeed. And when we get that, then that develops us. You know, if we ignore it, then it devolves us. Right. You that's real. And you built on before about so all right, I'll preface it like this. On that last J Electronica album that came out, he had on the intro was the Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he was speaking about, he said that whenever he asked the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad who the children of Israel were, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we are. And whenever you had a build about the biblical Israel being, you know, nomadic Hebrews and are different from that Israel that Elijah Muhammad spoke about. Could you build on that for me, God? Yes. When you look at Israel in the Bible, what's righteous about them? Right. There's not one thing righteous about Israel in the Bible. In fact, every land that they are going to inherit, they take it from somebody else. And the people who are historically in those lands are all Black people. Right. All of them is all Black people, right? Right. So we got to be real about that, right? So it is, you have Israel come about through lying and deceit. They stealing birthrights. They're lying, they deceive us and stealing birthrights. That happened to us. Right. So even though we know there's a historical Black that fits the criteria that you see all in Africa and all of those regions, we know that exists. But the characteristic of the individual that's being discussed there, that's white folk doing what they do to us. Usurping who we are.
Right.
You dig what I'm saying? That's clear in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. You dig what I'm saying? But if you're looking at the prophetical aspect, then we fit that bill completely and totally.
Right.
Absolutely. Even certain other aspects. I mean, even if we look at the white boy, Flavius Josephus.
Yeah.
He said at the time when, Caesar had called for a censorship, a censor. He had a census. He had called that forth. He said, with them was the natural Jew and the unnatural Jew. So the natural Jew and unnatural Jew, the natural Jew didn't eat any meat.
Right.
He was disciplined, but the unnatural Jew was not. So we're looking at somebody usurping who we are. Right. You see what I'm saying? Especially in the book of Numbers. We read this in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah too. So we see what's going on. It's clear of what's going on. Now, whether we accept it is up to us. Now, if you're talking about the historical Black Jew, of course he exists. Right. Of course, that's the original Jew. Right. Even all right. And I'm just saying, using the Jew as, speaking to a public, right? Right. That would be the original Jew. But when you look at Israel, even in ancient Egypt, they didn't speak anything good about Israel. Yeah, indeed. It was Merne Pataste, like they talked about how they destroyed Israel. Right. And nowhere in Egypt was there Israelite taken captive. So we're not dealing with that. So they was fighting something. Right. Historically wise, we're dealing with history. To kind of go back to a lot of these organizations that we were building on earlier, and you in your bill, which is powerful, and I appreciate you for being here, God. You named a lot of different organizations, such as the Rosicrucians, the Order of the Golden Dawn. Do you think that these organizations have played a powerful role in shaping America and its ideals? Absolutely. Swinburne Clymer was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Who was? Benjamin Franklin Swinburne Clymer. He wound up becoming the head and control of FRC, which is those Rosicrucian Order in America that's here in Quakertown, Pennsylvania. Wow. All right. You had Benjamin Franklin, Abraham Lincoln. They sat on a council called the Triad of Three. Benjamin Franklin was also a Grand Master of a French lodge. Majority of your was all Masons, Right. And let me tell you how this thing go. In theology of time, the Most Honorable Lodge of Muhammad made reference to that one of the scientists designed the flag. Right. And there's a book called Our Flag. When you read Manly P. Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages, he makes a reference and a discussion about how the founding fathers and how this thing was created. In there, from that book, Our Flag, that is a very old book, they make a discussion to how all of this took place. There was an individual that they called the professor. The professor was always seen amongst Benjamin Franklin and always amongst George Washington. He was always seen as always like writing in an old book, and then he would lock it back up. He didn't deal with anybody else. He wasn't a politician or anything, but yet these two men let him in to all of those aristocratic events and everything to talk to the delegation. They will also say that he will go away up in the mountains where he will meditate, and that he wouldn't eat in front of people. Wow. He ate at all. Now, for the signing of the Declaration of Independence, he stated that while he was in a locked room, doors, the windows down, an individual appeared within the room. He had a discourse for about 45 minutes and then disobeyed and then left. But he appeared in a locked room. Right. So when you get to the creation of the flag, you get that the professor designs the flag. They turn around, change the flag. He comes back and change the flag, and then you eventually get a different flag, right? That came from them. So if you're looking at the origin of something, look at it. Not even looking at Sir Francis Bacon's New Atlantis, where he describes the plan of America clearly, right? So,
wow, that's that's, you know, whenever we first hear about that type of history, that hidden history in America, as far as you know, secret societies and things of that nature, you know, it can sound like at times that it's, you know, crazy conspiracy theory, right? But whenever you look it up, like, it actually happened. It's like, you know, that's saying that truth is stranger than fiction sometimes. But with that
it happens.
Yeah. With that being said, do you think that some of these organizations are still powerful today?
Yes, I think there's some. I think that Freemasonry is powerful in the higher levels. It ain't that Freemasonry in its as a system is evil,
right?
But let's say if you and I belong to, let's say you got some 5% nation guards on earth. Y'all got a certain way of what y'all want to do, right? So let's say you come in, you're a businessman, you got power, you got money with a bank. This in a real estate mogul, whatever it might be. Let's say another one of you is a politician. Let's say another one work for the World Bank. Let's say another one you're from Tanzania. Let's say another one you from there, and y'all sit down and y'all discuss and say, listen, we're going to create a plan.
Right.
We're going to lock this shit down.
Right.
We're going to cause this, we're going to cause this, because we got the money, we control the banks and everything. It ain't that the system of the nation guards earth of 5% is evil.
Right.
I mean wicked. It's the individual minds that's happened to meet up because y'all had a parliament.
Right.
So we came down and we all met up.
Right.
And then we came up with a plan, and this is what it was. You see what I'm saying?
Indeed.
But the teachers of the 5% nation guards on earth is to raise man to the conscious of his reality.
Right.
That's what it's for.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But because some individuals are camping this John, who, because you at the parliaments and all that, you have an opportunity to network, we have networked.
Right. Right.
And because we have networked, this is what we attempting to do.
Right. Right.
Then we realize, hey, look, that Nation of Islam over there, man, they got a lot of powerful boys up in that John. We're going to go in there.
Right.
And now a few of them go up in there, and now they networking with them.
Right.
So now we get in position in that joint.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
And that has happened too. Not from nation gods and earths, but just from the wicked enemy, you know?
Yeah.
Got up in there, got in positions. It happens, right? It happens to a lot of things. It happened to your organization. You know what I'm saying? That's why the Nation of Islam and Nation gods on earth are so separate right now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because some wicked grafted seeds that came up in that joint and got you.
Right.
That's it. Because when you look at the earlier thesis of who and what we are, we was just fine.
Yep.
We was cool and cut.
Right.
Brothers and norms.
Right.
But you got one disrespecting the other.
Right.
One trying to get rid of lessons so that they don't have no history.
Yeah. Right.
See how that works? Yeah. One disrespecting one that give rise to them. And all of that because a wicked seed done entered you. And then separated you from the source of you. Where we are brothers. You dig what I'm saying?
Right, right, right.
So it happens. It ain't, the same thing happened in the Nation of Islam, separated master from Muhammad, not this one, not that. That's not my brother because he don't teach what I teach. So they got the moon god syndrome and all of that. Right. It's crazy. It happens, But do I consider that? I mean, let's take Hitler, for instance. Hitler and them had a design. When they went into countries, they came in with scientists and everything.
Right.
He was looking for them. That's because he was initiated in and backed by an order called the Thule Society. The Thule Society was individuals who was in magic and mystery systems. So you have to think about it from that perspective. So do they have power? They do.
Yeah, yeah.
They do have power. In fact, and I'll say this, in the early 2000s, there was a meeting. I'm not privy to talk about that.
It's all right. I understand, God.
I'm not privy, but I would speak about it to this extent because I wasn't there. And I like to speak about when I was there, but I could tell you what happened to that. There was a meeting of all these mystical orders from around the world. An individual came there by the name of Frata LVX. All right, and that will be his name. Now, this is something very interesting. Frata LVX is documented, signed in, century per century.
Wow.
You understand that?
Yeah.
So people could say what they want to believe all they want to. I'm telling you, there's things are very real. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Yeah, indeed.
So they can take it, and it's written, and it's documented, and it's written. So signatures sitting there, and at that meeting talking, and it deals with the spiritual direction of the West. So dig with it from that. You understand what I'm saying? So when people say this ain't real, that's up to them. They believe Master Muhammad, what he taught ain't real. Okay.
Right.
You don't know enough.
Right.
So you don't believe. You understand that you got the power to stop the rain and make it happen. Huh?
Right.
That's because you limited in your God science.
Indeed, God.
You got God. Yeah, they want to be God under accepting certain criteria.
Right. That's yeah, God. That's a powerful bill, man. I wanted to just say I appreciate you for coming on, G.
I appreciate you, God.
It's man, it was very informative. I got some homework to do tonight, God, and so I definitely.
Let me know, man. I give you a list of books, man. Make it's a lot of study, but not like me where you have to come across books and all. I've been studying this stuff for a long time,
Yeah.
But I want to say, I'm thankful for bringing me on, man. I have nothing but respect for the 5% NGE, the great Father Allah. You know what I mean? Father Allah brought a manifestation. And just to say something, many of the younger NGE believe that Father Allah gave something that's not in the teachings. And everything that Father Allah brought was within the teachings.
Right.
Man being Allah is in the teachings.
Right.
Man being God in the teachings.
True indeed.
It's clearly in the teachings.
True indeed.
It's clear. What he did was he put a magnifying glass on an aspect of the teachings. And when he did that, certain individuals. You got that in the ranks right now.
Yeah, indeed.
You say I'm Allah, they be like, what? You're not Allah.
Right.
Oh, you God, but you God a little G.
Right.
That happens in the ranks today.
Yeah, indeed.
You understand what I'm saying?
Indeed.
But it's just to show that what the God taught, it came directly out the teachings. He just put a magnifying glass on the aspect of the teachings that needed to be manifested, and I'm glad that he did.
Me too.
The manifestation of man being God and who is Allah must be made known.
True indeed, God, because without that, I mean, I wouldn't be who I am today, God, and so you already know, man. I definitely appreciate you, man.
Absolutely.
You have a good night, God. Peace to the God.
You as well.